The South African National Consumer Protection Act of 2008, commonly referred to as the CPA, marked a transformative milestone in consumer protection. Enacted on March 31, 2011, this landmark legislation addressed the shortcomings of the past and provided a robust framework to safeguard consumer rights. The Department of Trade and Industry, DTIC, took the lead in this endeavor, aiming to establish an economic environment that embraced both consumer rights and responsibilities. This legislation solidified the commitment to promoting fairness and ethical conduct in consumer business interactions, ensuring a just and equitable marketplace for all stakeholders. Before this pivotal moment, consumer rights were scattered, hidden among numerous statutes and unregulated aspects of the purchasing cycle. This left consumers and small businesses vulnerable, lacking the protection they deserved. In a momentous move on March 15, 2013, the CGSO emerged as one of South Africa's Consumer Ombud's office, championing the rights of consumers within goods and services and introducing the concept of voluntary industry oversight. The CGSO, kick-started by 24 founding members, established its headquarters on Bond Street, Randburg, with an unwavering commitment to advocate for consumer interests.
Well, I was involved in the Consumer Protection Act, having written a book simplifying the Act so that people, both consumers and the people who had to actually comply with the Act, could actually understand either what their rights were or what they had to do. And flowing from that, I was then appointed to act as the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman.
It's March 2013, the CGSO is launched. My journey starts when I'm called into the boardroom and getting introduced to the newly appointed ombudsman, who was to take office on the 1st of June 2013. And I'm told that I'm supposed to sit with him or go and work with him, help him set up the office, bringing my business acumen while he brings his legal acumen. And we combine the two to produce the CGSO that by then was on paper, and the code was drafted and submitted to the NCC. And that process was still ongoing.
Consumer Goods and Services Council assisted me by seconding one of their employees, Queen Munyai, to help me with the process. But one of the major challenges, once we got the logistics and everything sorted out, was actually signing up members of the consumer goods and services industry, because at that stage it wasn't compulsory to be a member, and I have to concede that I'm not a great salesman, so that was a real challenge to me.
When I started to join this organization, ke qadile ke sebetsa ko CGSA ke le part-time. Ne ke relieve di cleaner tse ding ha di ne di tsamaya di ya ko di holidaying. And then ha fihla nako ya hore ba mpitse ka 2013 ke a qala le CGSO.
At the beginning, when I got a call that I received or I secured the job, I got a little bit worried. I was not excited like any other person who will be excited for a new job. And the reason why I was worried, when I get to CGSO for the interview, nothing was promising. Just by looking at the offices, when I get inside the offices, I met Gladys, who was by then a cleaner. And I was told that there is the Ombudsman Advocate Melville, whom I'll be working with. And of course, the current CEO, Queen Munyai, she was supporting. She was still with the Consumer Council by then.
One of the very first staff members is still there, is Queen Munyai, who had a great role in helping me from the logistics side and the business side and making sure that the money balanced and so forth, that you need to have someone doing that. And of course, we had Omar, who I think is very familiar to most of the people who've seen anything about the CGSO on television or in the media, who speaks virtually every conceivable language, never mind just the official languages, and many of the other staff members who've contributed in a significant way.
We've been very blessed in the way in which our staff team have grown with the fact of an rapidly evolving organization and a rapidly evolving ecosystem and architecture that needed to be worked with.
I mean, starting from 2013, moving to 2017, we then got the new ombudsman, Ausmahauta. It was the best time that we've spent together, working together, joining hands, and also breaking a lot of myths that people have about women working together. I mean, when we look at that, I think for me, it gave us the opportunity to show that as Black women, we can do better.
Under the leadership of former Massmart CEO, Grant Patterson, the CGSO embarked on its early journey, focusing on providing a seamless facilitation process for resolving disputes between parties. The call center operations were entrusted to Cape Town-based company 121 Outsource, while Equalaw, another Cape Town entity, assumed the role of adjudicators, ensuring a comprehensive dispute resolution framework.
And I must say, I remember the first year, I then learned that the call center is based in Cape Town. We then went to visit the call center with Queen, and following that trip to Cape Town, then the management decided that we rather bring the call center in-house. And that is informed by my experience being in the call center industry and leading the call center team for all these years. And remember, these are the years that I had to give up on, 17 years of experience in an established organization, coming to an organization that you don't see way forward. To be honest, there was nothing that was telling me that this office will be where it is today. But the faith that we had and being positive, it placed the Ombud office where it is today.
The winds of change swept through the CGSO as Mahauta Mphahlele assumed the role of chair in September 2014, steering the organization towards broader horizons. This period marked a significant shift as the CGSO evolved from a voluntary industry body to a potential mega ombuds scheme.
During my tenure as ombudsman, obviously it was important for the office to be seen to be independent, and of course the starting point was for it to indeed be independent, and that was certainly made a lot easier once it became a statutory, or at least acknowledged in terms of statute, and it became obligatory for the parties to use the process, so it is part of a legal framework.
For the CGSO, we had to develop everything that we see here today.
This is what we used to laugh a lot about with the previous Ombud advocate, Melville, that we are appointed to come and drive the bus, only to find that we have to build the bus first. So we did that with fun, because I think having to start something from scratch is very exciting, because you never know what to expect next.
There were quite a few different things that we had to look at. Obviously, the most important part was to get systems together so we could manage complaints to make sure that they were dealt with speedily and appropriately. And of course, getting the right staff on board. That was quite a challenge as well, because not everyone had the sort of experience we were looking for.
I think if I had known up front, perhaps I wouldn't have agreed to take on the responsibility or the appointment. But now when I'm looking back, I feel like this has become one of the most fulfilling tasks that I had to execute in my career life.
So being part of that journey, to me, it was fulfilling, knowing that everything that is there, it had some influence of my mind or my time or even my hands.
When the Consumer Protection Act came about, it was something new to the country and new to consumers. And it wasn't really aware, and there wasn't awareness by all consumers. So we found that it was mostly those educated consumers who were aware of it. So we had some pensioners, for example, who would sit, read newspapers, and became aware of what they could complain about and what not. We had some extreme complaints where we had people sit and measure the size of the eggs that were contained in their small, medium, and large eggs, and make claims that they were not indeed medium eggs as were claimed. And then we also had to look at labeling of goods and educate our suppliers to add in additional labeling where, for example, prams, we had to say, please do not fold while the baby is still inside. And for Spider-Man and Batman suits, the wearer of this will not be able to fly.
Right. We worked with businesses and their legal representatives in order for them to reach amicable solutions with their consumers and customers who were dissatisfied with their services and goods by, first of all, explaining to them what their obligations were, but also in convincing them that from a business point of view, it was more cost effective for us to actually help them resolve the complaints than for them to deal with it through their lawyers and through the courts and so forth. So from an administrative point of view, it was a lot less strain on them. But also we persuaded them that actually we added value by bringing to their attention risks, for instance, that their business practices might create and that they might not have been aware of.
Hence, the Consumer Goods and Services Industry Code of Conduct says the businesses need to have an internal or establish an internal complaint handling unit. And why is that? So that when your customer or the customer is frustrated, they need to start to lay a complaint to the business. They must not come to the Ombud, but the business must have created a platform for consumers to complain and allow the business to handle that complaint. Only when the outcome of the complaint is not positive, then the law allows the consumer to approach the ombudsman with jurisdiction.
Because most of the consumers that we talk to are consumers within the fast-moving goods. So for the consumers to understand what is going on when they have to lodge the complaints, then it's where now the CGSO will come to the fore. It will come actually stoop down to the level of the people on the ground, educate them on how to go about filing their complaints and actually how they can be reached. But then what is also essential as well is that the Ombud, in terms of their positioning with the industry, if we need a specific industry that we have to talk to, they are the people that we go to. So that is those partnerships that we are seeing. But most importantly as well, the leaps and the growth that we have seen within the Ombuds is when they started as a small office, they started expanding in terms of personnel, but then also in terms of their professionalism, in the time that they will spend in addressing each and every complaint, and also now growing in the mode of actually mediating, because before it was more around the issue of let's get a complaint, let's send it to the supplier, but now we see more of an engagement. So that is the growth that we are seeing with the Ombud and wherein we are moving in terms of collaboration, because if there's something that we feel that the Ombud is not doing right, or maybe it can be done a little bit better, then we will sit with the Ombud, discuss with them, and then in that instance, then we see that kind of like growth in terms of the speed in which they would resolve consumer complaints.
March 30, 2015 stood as a historic moment as the industry code was officially promulgated by the Minister of Trade and Industry. Effective from April 29, 2015, the code ushered in a new era of consumer protection. by becoming the official alternative dispute resolution scheme for the entire consumer goods and services industry, except the automotive sector.
The biggest challenge happens just before the code was promulgated. There came a time where the tap ran dry. We were given the seed funding by industry through the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa. So that money was starting to run out before the code was promulgated. So that became a challenge that we have to close down. And the consumers had already started to know about us. Suppliers have already started to know about us. But now we do not have funds to continue to do that which we were called to do. We also had to now start calculating how do we lay off the staff that we have. So that has been a challenge for us.
A collaborative initiative between the National Consumer Commission, NCC, and the CGSO unfolded on May 29, 2015, as they jointly launched the Industry Code. This marked a commencement of a cooperative partnership to provide consumers with swift and cost-effective redress. As the code became compulsory, eligible suppliers were required to sign up, yet the transition was not without its challenges.
We work very closely with the National Consumer Commission, which is our regulator, and whenever they've got activations, we collaborate with them, ensuring that the message reach to the people.
The relationship between the NCC and the Ombud is a very collegial, professional one. We communicate more often. If there are issues maybe or areas wherein the Ombud would not even understand or maybe need some clarity in relation to the law, or which is the CPS, Consumer Protection Act, she would more often come to us and then ask those questions. And what we saw, or maybe as well that assisted us mostly, is that on areas that I knew, like when we had the issues during the pandemic, she would really reach out.
I think I've learned that nothing is impossible if people agree, if you take a journey together. So the collaboration between industry players to make sure that this becomes a reality is one of the things that I've learned, that when people can come together and agree on something that they want to do, they can never fail.
We have built relationship with other Ombud offices and other offices that are an alternative dispute resolution body. Then we will transfer or refer the complaint according to the jurisdiction. So we do not leave the consumer stranded. We assist them by referring the complaint to the relevant Ombud or the relevant office that can assist them with that particular case that they are complaining against.
So creating these relationships, maintaining these relationships, and creating even stronger relationships, because that is what an Ombud cannot exist in isolation. An Ombud needs to be supported by the industry, by its stakeholders. And I believe that the stronger those relationships are, the better the method of redress that we provide that leaves a better informed consumer and a much happier supplier and a well-balanced industry.
We have achieved a lot over the past 10 years. One, we've been able to implement the Alternative Dispute Resolution Body, which was envisaged by the CPA and the Code. We've been able to gain trust in the industry by both consumers and the suppliers. Having consumers that we have been able to facilitate redress for them and make sure that we put millions and millions of rands back into the hands of the consumers through our mediation role, which we were set up to do. And also to be able to reach out and get trust in the industry. We are now almost 1,500 participants that have signed up at group level. I think that is one of the things that we can see as an achievement.
There were certainly a lot of challenges that faced the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman in respect of getting recognition by the businesses themselves that the organisation served, the consumers who weren't aware of or didn't understand the function of the office, government departments who had their own particular concerns and agendas, and also I think the media and the public at large.
So, given that the CGSO is mandated by the Commission to deal with CPA-related complaints, they're obviously my go-to body for opinions. I mean, I can go to 5 different consumer attorneys who will give me 5 different interpretations of the Act as it applies to a certain situation. But for my advice to really legal advice to really stand up, I need it to come from the CGSO because of their standing in this arena, and for that reason, and also journalists work to quite impossible deadlines at times. So being able to get a relatively quick answer, and being able to rely on that in time for my deadlines has always been very valuable and very appreciated by me.
The landscape shifted again in 2017. Advocate Neville Melville, the former ombudsman for banking services, concluded his tenure, paving the way for a new phase of leadership. Thandiwe Zulu was appointed as the chairperson, adding a fresh perspective to the organization's governance. As the CGSO moved to its new premises on Surrey Avenue, Randburg in July 2018, it marked not only a physical shift, but also symbolized the organization's journey towards growth and expansion. On October 1st, 2018, a strategic decision was taken by the CGSO board, appointing Mahauta Mphahlele as the Ombud and Queen Munyayi as the CEO. This dynamic leadership duo brought renewed energy to the organization, further cementing its dedication to consumer rights and industry fairness. The CGSO demonstrated its commitment to transparency and accountability by issuing a series of consumer alerts against rogue operators. Leveraging social media and journalism, these alerts aimed to educate and empower consumers, setting a new standard for ethical business practices.
Gato was very good at, and I'm hoping the new Ombud will pick up and carry on with, is the issuing of alerts. So from time to time, she would issue an alert about a certain service provider who had been the source of many complaints to the office and had typically stopped cooperating with the office, and then a warning would be issued. Sometimes, 4 companies in one alert, and I found that very proactive and very consumer friendly, and not something that sort of naming and shaming is quite rare in the Ombud space. So I found it highly commendable, and I really look forward to those alerts, and I splash them on all my platforms.
The year 2020 brought unforeseen challenges as the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe. In response, the CGSO exhibited resilience and adaptability, temporarily closing its call center but introducing innovative communication avenues such as WhatsApp, email, and its website to ensure uninterrupted consumer support.
We did have a rather funny example where a consumer came to us and said the cake that had been provided for them for the wedding was entirely inappropriate, and they wanted the service provider of the cake to pay for the whole wedding to be reheld. That was very funny. Of course, we were able to say that's a typical example of an unreasonable demand.
So we had some really good stories, fun stories, not so fun stories, and it was a lot of education that had to take place in terms of what was a valid claim and what was not.
And the other thing that initiatives that we have tapped into is to collaborate with provinces. As we know that we've got consumer protection offices in every province. As the CGSO, we collaborate with those offices to ensure that the message of consumer awareness get even to the rural areas, to the people who are at grassroots level.
It's not just about looking at regional communities or rural communities rather. It's in different regions. It's not just about working with the poor, as sometimes people expect us to do, but there are persons with challenges, with communication challenges, persons who often feel marginalized for reasons that have sometimes nothing to do with economic circumstances. It's important that we make a difference to all consumers, irrespective of the circumstances in which they find themselves.
But also, the lesson that I also picked up is that sometimes you may go out there and trying to do something for which is going to be good for the community, but it's not everybody that will buy in. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the background to make sure that which you are working towards is accomplished.
We all have one intention, and that is to create fair play. It's to create fair play in business, fair play in transactions. And what we see unwrapping over this next few years and possibly sooner is basically a more solidified relationship between industry, between the Ombud and stakeholders, so that together we can find more innovative ways, more efficient ways, and be a world-class, or continue rather to be a world-class Ombud that we currently are.
March 1st, 2021 marked a significant shift as Queen Munyayi, the CEO, introduced a visionary funding model. This model not only reduced participation fees, but also introduced inclusivity for smaller enterprises, reflecting the CGSO's commitment to raising industry standards and promoting fairness. The legal landscape continued to evolve, with the North Gauteng High Court confirming the CGSO's authority to enforce the code. This decisive ruling upheld the CGSO's mandate and underscored its role as a guardian of industry integrity.
The online supplier, they were taking me from pillar to post. Ba kanthetha nalo namhlanje ngomso banika omnye umuntu acting as if bazandilungiselela ingxaki. Da realize this is taking longer than usual because ngiqhela uthenga kuyo le online supply. Da decide ba mandize kwa consumer protector. Uba ndizoleya i-complaint against this online supplier. Turnaround time khange ibe nde kakhulu. Ne results I was very happy ngazo.
Our mandate is to resolve complaints within a 2-month period, a 60-day period. And we've been able to do that quite successfully with substantively the majority of complaints. You never get everything right. Sometimes there are unresolved matters. That's the nature of life, unfortunately. But we're very proud of the fact that we've worked within very tight deadlines and been able to bring quite a lot of happiness to quite a lot of consumers.
What we see is the consumer behavior, They are starting to be interested in reading the contracts before they sign them, because that is very important. Before you transact, you need to understand the terms and conditions of that shop so that if anything goes wrong with the product that you've bought, you at least know what are the terms and conditions of that particular supplier. So these are the things that we observe and see that there is some sort of shift in the consumer behavior. As much as we know that there is still a lot of work that needs to be conducted, and we are still need to penetrate the country to ensure that consumers are well equipped with the information.
Despite legal challenges, the CGSO's commitment remained steadfast as it tackled issues of non-compliance and propelled itself towards a digital future. The collaboration between the company's tribunal and the CGSO heralded a new phase in dispute resolution, creating a more effective platform for both consumers and companies. As Mahau Damphahlele announced her departure after 2 terms, the CGSO continued to innovate. The launch of a mobile application on May 23, 2023 marked a technological leap, offering consumers a seamless and efficient way to lodge complaints and track their progress.
We have observed that the consumers are now moving to online and digital space. So we made it easy for them. We introduced the app so that they are able to lodge complaints in the comfort of their homes, or to lodge a complaint even at night or wherever they can be.
Increasingly, we are seeing new challenges on the horizon. Online shopping is becoming prevalent, especially with offshore service providers working out how to best respond there.
I mean, we've seen since 2020, since the COVID times, that consumers are now transacting online. So with that, I mean, consumers can buy from anywhere. We would like to see ourselves be able to help South African consumers with mediating their disputes about things that they're purchasing within the Republic and outside of the Republic. And maybe we can be doing it even online, or being innovative and using maybe AI, whatever that can make accessibility to our consumers easy.
Since its establishment in June 2013, the office has pursued excellence in helping resolve consumers' complaints against suppliers. This decade-long odyssey stands as a testament to our unyielding commitment to enhancing industry standards and fostering a more transparent and trustworthy consumer landscape.
I'm looking at the CGSO that will then go into the future. I think I envisage that this 10 years will be easier than the first 10 years, because the first 10 years we were putting down the foundation, trying to build this ADR or this Ombud scheme. And we have now become one of the best run organization, one of the best ombuds in the country.
Over this past 10 years, we've been walking up a mountain, and we're at a place now where you're standing at the peak and looking at the landscape. And now the next 10 years is a different mountain. It's a different project. It's a different challenge that we are going to take on. And I do not doubt that come 10 years time, even shorter than 10 years, we would be standing together on another peak, looking over another challenge and being ready to take on, I guess, another bigger sort of animal, so to speak.
With the growth that the Consumer Goods Services Ombud has made, I have no doubt that the progress and the future is certainly bright in terms of consumer protection, and the mediative role that the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud is to play between the supplier as well as the consumer. There's a lot more education that will be done and certainly can be done.
So far, since 2013, I can confirm that we can see the difference, and we can know that there is an ombud that assists consumers with their complaints whenever they need to take the matter to the next level.
I'd like to say big up to CGSO.
Shout out to 10 years anniversary to CGSO.
Happy 10 years, CGSO!
Happy 10 years to CGSO.
Happy 10-year anniversary, CGSO.